So now that we've generated our composer service, let's go ahead and implement it. So before we do that, let's open up our app.component.ts file, and we want to change the exercise name. So I'm just going to highlight it, and we want to change this to exercise 4.2 inversion of control and dependency injection. All right, let's close out all these windows that we have open. And now we want to open up the composer-list.component.ts file, where we want to remove the entry we have for the composer class that we created before. And now we want to replace that with the composer service. Inside the constructor's parameters, we want to add a reference to the composer service. So we're going to say private composer service and then composer service. Inside the body of the constructor, we're going to add an entry for, or we're going to call the composer service.getComposers. So we're going to say this.composers equals this.composer service.getComposers. So what are we trying to do? In the previous exercise, we created a composer class and we used the new word. So we used the new keyword and we said new composer. So we created a new instance of the composer class. In this case, we're just saying this.composer service. So we're using dependency injection, which is a built-in feature of Angular, to create a new instance of the composer service. So the point of this exercise is to demonstrate the difference between manually creating classes yourself through the new keyword and using dependency injection to create those classes as dependencies of that specific component. As long as you add that class to the constructor and you've identified the class as being injectable. So what I mean by that is when we open up the composer.service.ts file, we have this declaration that says injectable. If we add that to our class, that tells Angular that we can use it as a dependency injection. So in other words, Angular will create an instance of that class for us. So let's go ahead and update the details.component.ts file. And we'll do the same thing. We'll remove the class reference that we had, and we're going to replace that with the composer service class that we just created. So we'll say composer service. Inside the constructor's parameters, we'll add a new entry for the composer service because we want Angular to use its dependency injection to create a new instance of that composer service. So we're going to say private composer service and then composer service. Now all we need to do is replace our entry where it says new composer with this.composer service.getComposers. And then we'll pass in this.composer ID. So nothing really has changed in our code other than that instead of using a class where we have to manually say new composer, we're saying this.composer service. So they both function the same way. It's just a little bit different in how we're going to allow the built-in features of Angular to control the creation or the instantiation of a new class that we create. So let's go ahead and type in ngserve to run this application to make sure anything that we added did not break the application. So if everything was done correctly, we should still see our composer list and everything should function like it did when we used the class. All right, we'll just open up the browser window. We'll select refresh. And if everything was done correctly, you should still see your list of composers and the title name has been changed to exercise 4.2. And if I click on a composer, I should see the details of that composer. So I'm just going to go through the list of composers to make sure that everything is working correctly as it was before we added that service to our application. And it looks like everything was done correctly. In this series of lessons, we learned how to create services and we explored dependency injection in an Angular project. In our next set of lessons, we'll learn how to create form controls and how to handle events using observables. Thank you for watching.